The ARIS Process Mining solution pack for accounts payable contains a number of analyses based on the accounts payable processes. From a technical perspective, the solution pack contains the extraction and data transformations required to extract the data out of your SAP system, which will serve as the baseline for your analysis. Within this solution, we answer the main question, how to optimize the accounts payable processes in order to pay the vendor in the most efficient way. The solution captures your SAP activities starting from the receipt of the invoice till the payment of the open item. Around that, the solution focuses especially on the main KPIs, which are the invoice cycle time, days payable, outstanding, and first time rights. So what are now the benefits for you? As an outcome, you can measure the efficiency of your accounts payable department. So for instance, are my received invoices really posted in the system within an acceptable time in order to avoid missing the cash discounts which are offered by your vendor? Another example, for instance, do you have enough manpower in your department in order to perform the activities within a timely manner? So let's now dive into the system. So let's start with the Process Explorer. So the Process Explorer gives you the means to analyze your processes in the most flexible way. So you can really do a deep dive in your process structure. So you see here the happy flow with two paths. So we see here the logistic path with creation of the invoice, registering in the accounting, and finally the payment and the clearing. And on the left side, we see the non-PO path with the so-called finance invoices, which are finally also being paid. But of course, our tool is not only providing you the happy flow, we show you also the exceptions, and that's maybe more interested for you, right? So a typical exception within the accounts payable are payment blocks. Payment blocks are being set during the process. The nature can be differently. For instance, you can have price differences or missing discounts, which were agreed with your vendor upfront. Or from the goods receipt perspective, you could have issues with the quality of your goods, right? Later on, using the root cause finder capabilities, you can have a deep dive on those exceptions to find the symptoms or patterns in order to understand why those exceptions really are happening. To streamline more or less those exceptions, we have the structure of variance. So where you can see, for instance, the most common variant. In this example, we have the finance invoices. The next one, is about logistics. Then we have another one, again logistics, but with a correction of the account document, right? Let's now go further with the process conformance check. That's our second analysis. The conformance checks, what does that stand for? It verifies, in fact, the actual execution of your processes in SAP. And it checks this with your reference process, which you have modeled in ARIS. So practically what's going on, so you can import that in process mining, and then you can do a mapping between the activities which are happening in your SAP system and the corresponding process steps which are available in your ARIS process model. So in my example, I'm not so conformant. I have only a small number of my cases. So my process is more or less not conformant. You see that on the number here. If you want to dive in more or less detail, you find here the individual conformance issues. You can have then different. You will have different types of non-conformance. Could be that the case has an invalid end time, or there are differences with the consecutive activities. Let's go to the third analysis, the days payable outstanding. So this is in fact the when you pay your vendors. In fact, we compare here the baseline date versus the clearing date. On the left side, you find the different KPIs, having the maximum DPO, the average, the median, and you see also this rather exceptional. It's a minus number. That means that there was a conflict between, let's say, the baseline or the clearing dates in one of your cases. Further, you find an overview of the payment terms with the number of invoices and the number of payment methods with also the number of invoices which are applicable here. The next analysis is the first time right invoicing. What does that mean? So here you find, let's say, a number of analysis here to judge the quality of your vendor invoices. Typically, the solution verifies if there are payment blocks being set, which of course might delay the payment of the invoice. In our example, we have a pretty good number, so nearly we have 89% of our cases are really directly correct. We see also here the number of paid invoices and the, let's say, the percentage of the payment blocks. We make a differentiation between manual and automatic ones. The manual ones are being set during the process. The automatic blocks are typically set as a default on the vendor master data. So whenever you post an invoice, automatically the invoice is being blocked. And on the right side, you see by vendor a number of KPIs like the payment blocks and also the released ones. Finally, we have a KPI around invoice processing. So typically here, we report how efficient your vendor invoices are processed. So typically, what is the time here between the moment that the invoice is being received and the moment the invoice is being entered in the SAP system? So if you look to my number, let's say more or less all the invoices has the same document date as the posting date. This might definitely be a topic to be investigated. Yeah, and we have also here some KPIs about the total invoices, non-PO and the logistic ones. Also an interested KPI for your AP department is to know the number of invoices for each full-time equivalent. So in this case, we have an example, we have 2 full-time equivalents and they are working 221 working days. That means that every full-time equivalent more or less has to produce 140 invoices on a daily basis. To finalize, we have some benchmarking. So we have the number of invoices here by invoice currency. We have the total number of invoices by company code, if you have a number in your SAP system. And we have a global overview by vendor where we see here the logistic invoices, the finance invoices, and the number of payments.